Well, hello everyone, and welcome back. We are checking in with another staff member on the Danville staff at Southland, and my name is Brian Lucas. I'm on staff at Danville campus, and today we are chatting with Carson Childers. And so glad to have you, Carson, with us
Thanks.
today. Hey, as we get started here, will you kind of let everybody know how you came on staff, how long you've been on staff, and then who all lives in your house?
I am a production associate in Danville. I've been on staff there for just over 3 years, I think. Before that, I was part-time student ministries production at the Lexington campus for about half a year before that. People in my house, my wife, Caitlin, who is asleep right now because she's a nurse and she works at night.
Yeah.
And my dog Topo, who is an Italian Greyhound, who is crazy. He's sleeping on the floor, so hopefully he doesn't do anything.
Well, maybe we'll get some whining or something later.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you mentioned your wife, Kate, who is, sleeping right now because she's an incredible, one of those folks who's incredibly working for us on the front lines as a healthcare professional. She is actually working, if I got this right, UK hospital on the COVID floor, right?
She works on the MICU, so the medicine ICU, which is the floor below the COVID floor. However, she's been pulled up to it a couple times now to help out, and it's kind of the next if it spills over, it comes to her, and they work a lot with lungs and that kind of thing on that. So if you're in a bad way, you probably got some lung issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's that person.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I know this has created a unique, I guess, position for you guys. You've had to go into quarantine a whole lot more than the rest of us. We've kind of been working in and out of the office at Danville, taking turns on who's coming in, who's not. You've had to quarantine because of what your wife is seeing. And so how has that been different for you guys and for you specifically?
Yeah, I'm just trying to be extra careful. In Danville, we've got lunches going out from Tiffany and who else, I don't know who's popping in there. And so I'm just trying to be extra careful for our church and the people who are being served by our church. So, we're taking extra precautions when she comes home to make sure the house is good. And I'm kind of laying low for the most part. The way her schedule works is a little sporadic. So there are definitely times where I'm hoping to be able to get away when, an amount of time when I know symptoms would have shown up, if something's going to happen. And so that means we're probably okay to venture out a little bit more before she goes back to work the next week.
Sure.
Because there's usually a gap. But yeah, it's been a little interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so that lends us to the question of what have you been doing while either stuck at home or venturing out just a little bit, but what have you been doing during quarantine?
Man, besides Call of Duty,
Way.
I've been reading my Bible a lot. Honestly, I've kind of have a daily thing going. I've talked a little bit about this with some other staff members before, but I had a really good rhythm in my Bible before this started. And so I'm really fighting to maintain that discipline. That's kind of difficult right now. Same thing with like exercise, even if it's, an exercise bike or a walk or whatever. That's what I've been doing. I'm playing a little bit of music. I play bass guitar. And so, maybe doing some recordings and stuff for friends and shooting some ideas. But yeah, staying quiet while my wife's asleep. So there are certain hours I'm more active than others.
Sure. Yeah. So quiet house, you're a bass player. So either you've got headphones on trying to practice it up or, or you're doing something special to allow her to sleep.
Yeah, it sucks to play with headphones. So you want it loud. You want the neighbors to know.
You want to feel it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. You've given me a lot to ask you on that. So let me first ask you what's jumping out at you in your Bible reading right now? What's got your attention?
Um, so I've just generally been working through almost in order Paul's letters
Okay.
and Acts. Um, so what's jumping out at me is usually just the nuances
Hmm.
that when I'm not in my Bible, I just assume here's a box that God works this way, and you know you have complete freedom in your will, or another box would be you have no freedom in your will, or all these different things, boxes that we try to put God in, and it's just not that. You get evidence of God working one way and the church working one way, and then the church doing something different in a different circumstance, and you can't just go, it exactly works like this all the
Sure.
time.
Yeah.
It's very nuanced.
Yeah.
So I found when I'm not freshening up and not in my Bible, I miss out on the nuances, and I want to speak in definitives that might not actually be true, and I certainly don't want to speak for God. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. So how translate that for us, the nuances of what you're reading and how you're catching that into your life. How does that impact you in your walk?
uh, it's hard. It's I'm kind of just the way my mind works. I kind of have the big picture in mind always. Um, Sometimes too much. Like sometimes, just as a personality flaw, I've got the weight of the world on me, and I'm just sitting on the couch like when I should be resting,
Sure.
something like that. But uh, I'm an INFJ for the Myers Briggs people.
Sure.
Um, so the more I learn, and the more I wrap my head around it, the better I feel like I can serve God's purpose in my daily life. And so, if it tells me not to make rash decisions about this certain area, then I have to keep that in mind, and I have to keep the whole picture in my mind in a healthy way. You know,
Yeah.
not in like an anxiety inducing way.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So
Okay. That's great. Well, I think we're all trying to understand exactly what God's speaking to us in this new way of living life right now. And then also trying to figure out the nuances, to use your word, of what it looks like when we get back to whatever normal is after this. So I appreciate your take on all of that. A little bit, you mentioned playing bass. I see the equipment behind you. You've got a home studio. So talk a little bit about your bass playing and in your love of even producing music. That's kind of what you do for us too. Both of those things. So your love of that, lean into that a little bit. Let folks know just how much you're into that, maybe how you got started.
oh man, I've always been obsessed with music. Um, I remember really early on. I don't remember like my childhood bands. I remember my parents got divorced when I was 6 or 7, I think,
Hmm.
maybe 7 or 8, and my dad was a DJ. Back when you had to haul all the CDs or records to your gigs, and he was currently working for a radio station, and that's kind of why we moved to Kentucky in the first place. And I feel like that was when I was 4 or 5. So Kentucky's home. Don't get me wrong;
Yeah.
it's where I've always been. But we kind of moved around for radio station jobs that he was in. So he was doing a radio job and didn't do the CD DJ thing. So he had left this whole huge CD collection at my house when my parents separated. And so I just go through these all the time and just listen and listen and
Yeah.
listen. And like it was all over the map genre wise, because it's everything. It's anything you think someone's going to walk up and ask you at a wedding or
Sure.
party to play.
Hmm.
So I just listened and listened and listened, and I always wanted to be in band in school, and for some reason my parents never let me,
Hmm.
and so when they split up, I kind of used it a little bit. I was like, man, I'd really like to be in band now. It'd be really great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I may have guilt tripped my way into band a little bit.
Okay.
But this was probably like seventh grade. So
Yeah.
um, I wanted to play saxophone. We actually moved to New Jersey at the time, kind of the bridge over from Philly, um, just so we could kind of recoup for a minute
Yeah.
at my aunt's house. Um, and they had a really good band program at that
Okay.
school, a really really good. Um, and I wanted to play saxophone
Yeah.
because I love all that.
Yeah.
And I guess the band teacher just saw the chubby new seventh grader and he said, "You're playing tuba." So I played tuba. Everybody wanted to
Okay.
play sax, and I had to play tuba. Um, but I got pretty good at it. It was a really good school. I think they compete nationally for a lot of stuff. Anyway, and then
Hmm.
one time they had a little jazz band thing going.
Okay.
They needed a bass player for that.
Yeah.
And so I begged my mom for a bass, and eventually I got it, and it was
Okay.
awesome. And then before our first rehearsal, we moved back to Kentucky.
Okay.
So
Dear.
I never got to play with that jazz band, but I had the bass, and I had at times no friends. And so
Hmm.
I just played bass and played bass and played bass. And so that's where a lot of that came from.
Okay. That's awesome. Moving from tuba playing 5-1 all the time, and then you get to
Hmm.
noodle around on a bass. So that's awesome.
Yeah, so I already knew a lot of the fundamentals of bass playing because the tuba generally plays in the same range.
Right.
And so when I got really good or better, places around would hire me because I could read the sheet music because a lot of
Mm,
bass players can't read sheet music, and then I could play the contemporary church stuff too.
yeah. Yeah.
So,
Man, that's great. That's awesome. Okay. Well, maybe we'll touch on that a little bit more here in a minute, on how that incorporates into Southland. But let me ask a couple questions about back to quarantine a little bit. Are you into books? I know you talked about Bible reading. Is there anything that you're reading beyond that?
yeah, so well, into books, no, it's a struggle to
Yeah.
read anything for me.
Okay.
I've got a few things that I kind of am trying to keep going with. Something I am doing is I'm reading kind of a commentary series from
Hmm.
N.T. Wright.
Yeah.
He's a huge Bible theologian for the New Testament. And so I've had these study guides. This is the
Yeah.
one I'm in right now. It's awesome. And then I have like the series where he gets really, really deep.
Yeah.
And there's like 18 of these, I think, on
Yeah.
every book. Like it goes pretty deep.
Yep.
And when I'm reading it, I'm not taking his words above scripture or something like that. But oftentimes there will be a detail in what I take in face value that I could completely miss.
Sure.
And it changes my understanding. Um, so I've never sat down kind of with a commentary. I've always just kind of read.
Mm.
And there's a book called I think it's called Hearing God by Nathan Falchio.
Okay.
He's one of the Hillsong pastors,
Okay.
and he's super funny guy, really quirky. And so I kind of took a chance and read it, and he had a big passage on um, while yes, the Bible can mean different things for you in different situations, and it might have a clear message for you that's outside of what you think the passage is about, but the Bible absolutely had a definitive meaning for the people it was given to, for the letters that Paul sent.
Yeah.
There was a correct interpretation of it and an incorrect interpretation. So he suggested in that chapter really looking through the Bible with like a strong commentary. And I was like, well, let's do it. And so I've been trucking along
Yeah.
for a while. I've been doing it for a while now.
Yeah. No, I think those N.T. Wright books, especially because I'm familiar with those, those are great to incorporate with your normal reading. Let the Spirit speak to you through your own reading. But then for those of us that can't or didn't go to Bible school, to get a lot of that history and stuff, N.T. Wright does a good job of incorporating history and what's happening in the culture and all of that into what you're reading to help better understand
Yeah.
maybe why it was written the way it
Mm-hmm.
was. So yeah, I would
Without being
recommend those.
too academic either.
Yeah. Yes.
That's something it is usually above my head.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the really well researched commentaries are just like deep, hard to read, and so he's done a good job of watering it down enough for someone like me to understand.
Yep. Yeah, and also for folks looking to get something to incorporate into like a small group or something, those books are great for that too. There's study questions, study guide questions at the end of the chapters, and he writes them as and titles them. Let's call it First and Second Corinthians for everyone, because they truly are for anyone that is interested. So, from all levels of academia.
So this one that you're talking about just kind of nudges you. It's great questions and sometimes a little bit of exposition of the really important stuff he thinks you need to know that you might miss.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me give you a chance. I know ministry is kind of weird right now and how we're staying connected to our people and the world. So what specifically is the production team or you specifically doing to keep engaged with folks?
Yeah, it's difficult. I've been checking in with my guys, especially the ones I know are at home. But the vast majority of people seem to be still working. And so I'm trying to find the balance of too much contact. I don't want to annoy anybody, but if someone needs something, I want to find a way to meet that need. And, with us, that extends to people in the church. We've been calling a lot of folks just to check in on them. And so that's been great. That's one of the biggest things I've been doing is just checking in on people, seeing if they're okay, seeing if their kids are okay, seeing if I have a connection to someone in Danville or someone anywhere that could meet whatever need they have. That's the best I got right now. It's really difficult when your position is all physical prep for a big live event, and it's like all of those things are gone.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to really lean in to make sure people are okay, and maybe do some personal or job related development stuff. Like, hey, here's a YouTube video on how we could maybe do this better. Here's an example of something we'd like to get towards, maybe that kind of stuff. So
let me lean into that for just a sec for anyone that's watching this that might be interested in joining the ministry whenever we do get to come back together and do the big live worship event all in one room again. Excuse me. Is there anything that you would say, hey, go watch this, just to get a kind of an understanding of what we do or continued engagement in some sort of way that when we come back, they could go, hey, I watched this while we were gone. Love to be part of the team.
Off the top of my head, I don't have anything specific. However, if you're interested in that way, I will find something to send to you. So feel free to email me. It's cchilders@southlandchristian.org. Well, it's southland.church now. Yep. cchilders@southland.church. They'll both go to the same place. So I will find something. However, there's a podcast called MixU, which is spelled MXU. They have some YouTube videos now, and it just kind of shows a little behind the scenes of what we do. A lot of it's related to audio, but they're kind of branching out now. That's a good place to start.
Okay. Well, and we do everything with excellence. You guys are so professional in what you do. However, it's not that so high quality caliber, whatever, that not you
Hmm.
couldn't train anyone to come on board your team. So I think that's important for folks to remember too, is yes, it looks, I mean, the buttons are flashy and the lights are flashy, and I mean,
Yeah.
excellence of the team members who play in the band. I mean, that's one thing for those that are practicing at home and all of that. Continue to do that. In the production world, man, a little bit of training can get you a long way. And so, yeah, for sure,
Hmm.
be in touch with Carson if you have any interest in that once we all do get back together. Okay.
Yeah, I can teach about anyone how to do all of it.
That's
It
awesome.
just depends on how much time you have and what are you willing to serve. And that's not a negative thing. If you're
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, I want to serve once a month and I want to do something I can just show up and roll with it," I have 3 out of 4 positions that I would
Hmm.
love to have you for.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just what are you willing to give, and kind of know that if you come to me on the front end,
Sure.
I don't want to take or even ask you to take more than you want to give.
Yeah. Yeah. Always a consideration when serving with one of our ministries for sure. Hey, let me give you just a moment here to kind of sound off if there's anything that you'd like to just give to all of us, and give you a moment for that. Then we'll hit a lightning round. So, what would you like to say to everybody?
Mm. Maybe even if you're not part of a ministry area, just check in on people.
Hmm.
I know if I didn't have as good of a support system as I do from the church, from really great friends outside of the church, that personalities like me can get really in their own heads. And so, just check on people. Check on people that are living alone or whatever the deal is, family members. So,
That's great. That's a good reminder. Yeah. In fact, I probably need to make a few phone calls when we are done right here. Okay. Let's hit it up with lightning round real quick. And these are just whatever's your favorite. Okay. So, favorite pizza place.
I really like Goodfellas in Lexington.
Okay.
I live in Lexington. I commute to Danville. My wife doesn't like it as much as I do. So there's usually an argument there, and I don't always get it as much as I would like it. And so in my head, it might be better than it actually is, but I really like
Okay.
it.
Okay. I think I know the answer to this, but anchovies or no?
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like
Okay.
anchovies.
Yes. Okay. All right. Favorite burrito joint?
There's a place called Taquio Ramirez in Lexington that has a great, great burrito, and I live like 2 minutes from it.
Yes.
So there's
Yes.
that.
Okay. You've told me about this place before. I need to get there when we get back to
It's
opening all
awesome.
these things. Okay.
Yeah.
What were you listening to? You mentioned your dad was a DJ, so you had the gamut, but what was your go-to in high school?
Um, well, I had a lot, but kind
Hmm.
of the big ones. Early high school, I was into this band called AFI a lot. I've grown out of them a little bit because they kind of softened up around the edges as they've
Okay.
gotten older. Their early
Okay.
stuff was like really angry punk rock, and I was all about it, and I could still throw down to that. Probably the biggest one, kind of the later half of high school, and currently, I love this guy called his name's D'Angelo, and he makes like really lo-fi kind of uh, funky music. It's a little psychedelic sometimes. It's kind of weird,
Yeah,
and I am just obsessed with it. It's so
that's
good, and
awesome.
he's kind of gone off the face. He was like early 2000s. He got really popular, then he went away for like 10 years,
Yeah.
and he like pops up with a new album that is like
Okay.
mind blowing. Then he disappears. It's
Okay.
it's crazy.
Yeah, so if you want to get off the beaten path, you want to find some indie music, even some great vinyl, Carson's your guy to get in contact with
Oh
because
yeah, yeah.
he will lead you in the right direction. All right. Anything on the bucket list item that you want that you have to, you have to do?
Uh, right now, I just want to renovate my house, and I
Okay.
have a detached garage that I want to put a studio in.
Yeah. Okay.
So bucket list might be like lifelong, but that's like I really want it, and it's a little far off.
Yeah, that's all right. We'll get you there, man. Come on. All right. Now this we talked about a little bit ahead of time just to know it was coming, but states that you visited. Do you know you don't know a number, but you have
Yeah,
general areas.
my family is generally spread out on the East Coast. I think I've been to almost every East Coast state. I have not gone kind of to the middle of the country or beyond. I haven't done any West Coast, any. I haven't done Texas, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So kind of isolated to kind of this section of the U.S. I
Yeah.
did do a jazz band tour with Asbury when I was there. That we kind of went all the way up to Michigan and hit a bunch of spots. So
Yeah.
that was probably the farthest I've been.
That's awesome. Okay. So we got to get you west. Go west, young man. Go west.
Yes.
All right. International travel. Have you been out of the country?
Yeah. So the only time I've been out of the country is when I did a mission trip to Haiti with Southland. I was in high school at the time, and if I remember correctly, it was like a test. It was kind of like a, hey, we're going to see if we like students to go to Haiti,
Okay.
and we don't. not not only students. So
So students, you can blame Carson and all the rest of the high schoolers that were there. Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. Okay, that's the end of my list, man.
yeah,
Yeah. Hey, so thank you so much for your time, first of all, and then also for the ministry that you continue to get plugged in. I mean, you've been a part of Southland for a long time and have always been either a volunteer, but always a leader. And so I'm just grateful for you, grateful for the fact that you do commute to us out of Lexington to bring us your skills and your talents and your calling. To the people here of Danville and surrounding areas. And so, yeah, so thank you. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for the way you lean into
thank
God's
you.
leading and continue to pursue him, because we get the overflow of that. So appreciate you for that. So thanks, and we'll catch up with you real soon. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thanks to Carson for giving us a little bit of his time and helping us to get to know him a little bit better. And that's it. That's everybody on the Danville staff. So we'll start something fresh, something new for us to be able to stay connected to all of you. So stay safe, stay connected, and we'll see you soon.